Welcome back to the Worthy Woman podcast with Aston Simmons. I am so excited to have this conversation today with the beautiful Andrea Bombino. This beautiful woman is a certified life and career coach working specifically with women as they navigate through motherhood and their professional career. We are going to be talking all things motherhood, the lies we've been sold about motherhood, and trying to balance the career, the relationship, motherhood. We were just talking offline how so many lies we've been sold, and we're trying to meet up to these expectations that are just so unrealistic. So if you're feeling that, we're going to be diving into that. We're also going to be talking about how to manage the mother load and anything that really wants to come through. There's so much that we can talk about. We literally could have recorded a podcast before we went live because Andrea has just so much knowledge to share with us. She's doing some amazing things. We were just talking about how she's working with a business at the moment to bring better parental leave programs in, and I 100% feel that we need that worldwide. The system is definitely broken. So this woman is doing some amazing things. She's also a mum. I love her work. I will be putting all her links below so you can go check her out. But like I do with every guest, I want to hand it over to this beautiful woman now to really show us who she is outside of the bio. Everybody knows that I really like to see the heart of my guests, and the bio is just part of them. So I'll hand it over to Andrea right now, and we will hear what she has to say.
Thank you so much, Aston. I'm so excited to be here. By way of an introduction, I mean, you did cover, like, I absolutely work with women who are navigating their careers and motherhood. And I really focus on that shift of identifying what the changes are in their lives and how they can navigate it. Because for some women, it feels like losing themselves in motherhood. For others, it feels like finding themselves or finding a piece of themselves that they never knew existed. And so, it is such an aspect of our lives that can change dramatically, and yet so infrequently do we hear the real nitty-gritty details about it. Or oftentimes women say that they feel like they're the only ones that are feeling this push and pull between their professional careers or their career ambitions and motherhood. And so this all started for me because when I was growing up, for some reason, well, I can get into that later, but I always assumed that I would be a mother, and I never really questioned it. And I went to uni and I studied sociology, which is really just the study of people and how we interact and our societal norms and what's not so normal. And all along, from the beginning of my professional career, working with massive banking institutions on Wall Street in tech recruitment, I saw women treated differently to men. And I especially saw women who were mothers being treated differently by everyone. And I kept asking the question, why? Why is this happening? Does it have to be this way? What's going to happen if I choose to be a mother? Or at that time, I was like, when I become a mother, because there was that assumption at that time of my life. And I ultimately ended up leaving that world because I didn't see very many women who were married, who had kids, who were in positions of leadership. And I didn't see myself there. Literally, there was no example. And so it just so happened that as I left that business, I met my now husband, who was on holiday from Australia. He was visiting New York City. And we did long distance for a little bit. And I ended up moving to Melbourne, and I got a job working with LinkedIn. And while the culture there was phenomenal, I was working with recruitment agencies again, where I saw the blatant preference for people who were not parents, especially not mothers, run rampant through the workplaces. And again, I was asking this question, and it was while I was there that I became a mother myself. I was pregnant. I was 4 months pregnant when the pandemic hit, and we went into our first, global lockdown. And we were out of lockdown for about 2 weeks when my daughter was born. And then 3 days later, we went back into lockdown for another 4 months in Melbourne. And so my entry into motherhood was very much defined by what we did and didn't have access to. And from the moment that my husband and I had been even talking about having a family, I was still asking those questions. Well, what's going to happen to my career? Who will I be? How will things change? I didn't want them to change. My entire, looking back now, I can recognize that my entire personality, my entire identity was so heavily wrapped up in I'm a professional. I'm an achiever. I'm a go-getter, a super salesperson because I worked in sales and marketing for years. And none of that really aligned with motherhood, right? Because I was used to company-wide emails recognizing my efforts and my hard work, congratulating me on these major deals that I brought in. There's no emails in motherhood. No one's saying like, "Hey, you're employee of the month." No one's congratulating you on, on a regular basis for keeping your child alive, let alone, just loving them even when you feel like you're, negotiating with the terrorists. And so for me, the person that I am is somebody who is inherently inquisitive. I've always been curious. I love asking the question why. I am a sociologist by heart, so I always look at the world through these glasses of this is not happening on its own. We don't live in a bubble. We live and we mother in a society that operates in a particular way, and that's why it feels hard sometimes. So the person that I am at heart is someone who is always going to look to understand and look to make sense of the world.
Mm.
Um, and outside of that, I would say I'm a novice gardener. I've got two black thumbs, but I recently moved to the Hudson Valley, which is about an hour and a half outside of New York City. And so I'm trying to become greener. Learning how to garden has given me a really big appreciation actually the seasons in our lives and the seasons of
Mm.
motherhood. I'm an ultra marathon runner. I'm a podcast aficionado. I'm a huge dog lover. Love pizza. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend, and I'm also mother to a almost 3 year old. My daughter's turning 3 this Saturday. So
Wow.
lots of life lessons over the last few years, and really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Oh, amazing. I had goosebumps. I was there with you. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I know that everyone can relate to this conversation because exactly what you said, and I say it all the time, it's not unique. Our problems are not unique, they're
Mm-hmm.
universal. And that's why, I mean, we were talking before we went on air about this is where social media can create some problems because we are sometimes following people that don't have kids or don't have our same values. And then we wonder why we're doubting ourselves or doubting ourselves in motherhood. And I remember having that epiphany of like, well, hang on a minute, like I'm I'm not comparing someone at the same season. They don't have two children, or they don't two children. They're not married, or they don't have a business, and neither is right or wrong. But it's like coming back to like, who am I comparing myself to? And like you said, are they in the season that I'm in? Again, it's not right or wrong, but maybe this isn't helpful for me. And it does relate to like to gardening and to nature. I love to look to nature as well. I'm very inquisitive like you. I'm always like, there's got to be a better way. Why is it like this? Like, can we find another way? And I love that that's what you're doing with the work that you do because there is a better way. And it is heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking seeing the way women are treated in workplaces. It just it's heartbreaking because we're bringing the next generation in. I work with women too, and several women that I've worked with have been having their first or second baby as we're working together, and there is so much anxiety returning to work because they're not the same person, but there's almost this expectation to act like you don't have children when you do have children. And anyone that's listening that's a parent is you can't just pretend you don't have them. Like, they're part of your life. Your life does change, and it is hard, and it's even harder when there's almost this expectation out there that it shouldn't be hard and you should be able to manage it all on your own. And I suppose this is some of the lies that we'll get into because that's not true. We're all finding it hard for a reason because it is hard. um, it
Yes.
just absolutely is. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. If anything, what we're saying is the system is broken. And it's not really allowing mothers to thrive because it's not actually taking into consideration how they change or how their life needs to change to accommodate this person or several little people that you're also taking care of. And I love what you said about there's no like emails that go out like appreciating us because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the hardest part of like I'm a go-getter, an achiever just like you, and so many women I attract and women that listen are like that. They're independent women. They're wanting to, do things, and, they're self responsible. But, you can have all of that and then go into motherhood, and it's like, whoa, okay. It's like we have to learn to validate ourselves. We have to learn to celebrate ourselves, and to know that we are enough and what we're doing is enough. Because you're right, there isn't anybody really giving us that pat on the back. And I think that's a big reason why I love to celebrate other women and get other women on my podcast, particularly mums, so that I can celebrate them and be like, you are doing a great job, because I know what it feels like. And I do feel like what you said with the COVID, because my daughter was a COVID baby too. She's just about to turn 4. And it was tough. It was like, I know a few clients that I've worked with had COVID babies. And again, that's a different experience to someone who had a baby pre COVID. Because you didn't see family. You couldn't take them anywhere. Motherhood is
Mhm.
isolating, but it was like isolation on another level. And I feel like that's a whole nother thing that, women are dealing as young mothers, and you went through as well, that not everybody can relate to or knows how to support you in that, because it was something they hadn't been through. And I know that was really big for me as well. So, yeah, I love that you shared that. I could relate to so much of that, and I know so many women can. And I would really love to start with those lies that we've been sold, like those ones that do impact the workplace. And, I'm sure you've experienced them. I'm sure women that you work with have as well. And yeah, I'd love to just bring them to the light, to the truth of, what some of those are. I know there's, quite a few, and you share so much about this and so much helpful advice about it on your Instagram. But yeah, I'd love to just dive into that a bit, and how we can kind of, reframe it to work for us instead of against us. Because I do feel like it does feel like things are against us a lot of the time, with some of these beliefs, and like you said, the way society mothers.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack there. And I'll
Yeah.
start by just saying that and by we, I mean like this generation of women who are mothers right now are a little bit unique in the sense that we are a generation that has been raised to really value independence and to
Mm,
really value our careers. So from when we were little girls, like even if you were given a Barbie, Barbie probably had some sort of an occupation. There
yeah.
was Dr. Barbie, there was air stewardess Barbie, there was teacher Barbie, whatever there was, right? She wasn't usually Barbie just a mom. And Barbie had a certain type of lifestyle, right? She was pretty independent, and Ken was just an accessory, and she did her own thing. And so we were taught, go to school, get good grades. Our ambitions were fanned. We were given grades. We were put also usually on a bit of either you got a gold star or I got a gold star. And if we didn't both get gold stars, it's like, oh well, one is better than the other. And so that sense of competition was seeded very early for us. And then depending on what sort of examples we had in our own household, we either had, if you had a mother, you either had a mother who worked outside of the home, or maybe she worked in the home doing the child rearing and managing the household, or maybe a combination of the two. But for the most part, we were told to go grow up, get an education, and work. And the thing is we were also still treated like one day we will be mothers. We are given dolls as gifts. We're told, you're so kind, you're so thoughtful. We're being praised for being good sisters and like siblings and just taking care of other people. We are given praise for taking care of others, even if it's to the detriment of someone else. Like oftentimes, like calling someone kind means or good means that they are good in comparison to who or to what. And it's like the person who doesn't do those things. And so all of these things are things that we grow up seeing those around us perform these roles. We
Mm,
see the role of mother being performed, we see the role of maybe professional woman being performed, but no one taught us how to meld the two necessarily.
mm, so true.
And like if we look at television movies, books, all these things through the 90s and then the 2000s as to what we saw in our world, there weren't very many examples of women who are successful in their careers and become mothers and still manage a career and motherhood and a relationship and their own personality or interest outside of motherhood or their relationship or their career. And I always like to look at the example of like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or any of the women in Sex in the City. Like
Yes.
motherhood is an afterthought. It is something that happens to you. And in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like it doesn't, you know, she's like this career driven woman. When we look at The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep's character is doing great in her career, except that what happens? She puts her career first. So she loses her husband and essentially loses her kids too.
Yes.
So what
Oh
are we
my
telling
God.
women?
Yes.
There's these stories of like, you can have it all, but also you're going to put something on the line and it's probably going to be your interpersonal relationships. And it's also seeding this idea of you're a bad woman and a bad mother if you do put your career first. And
Mm,
yet we glamorize all of these characters who put their career first above everything else. And so some of the lies that we've been told is that we can have it all.
mm,
And I'm not saying that we can't. It's just like, a, number one, what does having it all look like to you? What does that actually mean? And number
100%.
two, is it aligned with your values and the season of life that you're in? And also, what sort of access do you have to things like childcare, healthcare? Do you have steady income? Do you have a partner that can also be involved with the child rearing? What sort of work do you do? Because if you work in, let's say, healthcare and you don't have a say over the overnight shifts that you're doing, your life is going to look much different from somebody who works in technology and can work from home
Mm,
on a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 sort of basis. So it's like that's a really big one
yeah.
around,
It's
you know, thinking that
huge.
we have to have it all and do it all at the same time comes
Yeah.
up so often.
It is. And I felt it. I feel like so many women do. And this is where I feel like with that one, and we'll probably dive into it afterwards, is that's where for me, I had to reevaluate my identity and what was actually
Definitely.
important to me. What do I value? And actually, do I want it all? Like, what they're saying. Do I actually want what that all is? And what is that all? Exactly like you said, like, do I really want to be like those characters? And it's a bit of a, you have to dive deep into your subconscious, because I didn't think I was impacted by Barbie and all those stories and things that you shared, but when you share it, it's like, ah, oh, yes, yes, yes. Like, and I know women listening will be like, that's where that came from, and it's not even yours, and you get to redefine it and reevaluate, definitely, but I think we need to create the space to do that. And that's where I do feel for mothers, because it's not like we're given that time and space. You have to actually carve it out and decide, no, this isn't working for me. I've had to do that so many times. This isn't working for me. I need to create space. We were just like talking about that before, offline. Like, this is something I want to do. I'm going to have to create space, sit with it, see what it is, see how I can make it work. Um, and we can do all that. But yeah, it's not like this, like, click of the finger, like, like just happening.
Absolutely. I often say that pregnancy is the shortest ramp up time for a career change that lasts a lifetime. And
Yes. I love
so
that.
often, if you think of like any job that you start, there's going to be a period of ramp up where you are figuring out the new normal, where you're figuring out quite literally where things are, or where they belong, and how to do the role. And it's not often that we expect people to kind of flick this light switch and just
Mm,
know. And one of the other lies, and actually I don't think I mentioned this in my social media post, but one of the other lies that we've been told and sold as mothers is that mothering, the act of caring and caregiving for our children, is an inherent thing.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
No.
So, like, it is actually like there's a difference. Mother is a noun, it is a role, it's like a hat that we put on. And so, when
Yes.
we become mothers, we step into our society, and people may typically, oftentimes, treat us differently. How often
Yes.
do you go to the playground and you might meet all the other little kids and you know their names, but you don't know the mother's names?
Yes.
It's just mom. It's so and so's mom. Like,
Yes.
and it's like, wait, but that mother has an identity outside of that, right? But maybe she's just wearing the mom hat while she's at the park. So mom is one thing, then mothering is a verb. It is that caregiving, that child rearing. And then motherhood is the sociological construct that we do our mothering within.
Yes.
And so what ends up happening is that we have these norms and expectations of what it looks like to mother within a Western culture. And one of the things that we've also been taught is about consistency and making sure that we don't change our minds. And
Mm.
so when we do, or when we feel those first cracks of, wait a second, this is no longer aligned, dare I say, we'll call it intuition, which a lot of people
Yes.
think is like so woo woo. And I'm
So
like,
woo
it is the
woo.
most
There is
basic
so
part of like
much.
who we
Yes.
are.
And there's so much.
Like,
I
it's
mean,
not a bad thing.
no, I don't need the science personally. I'm all for the woo, but there is so much science now to support it. I'm like, come on.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so the reason why I say this is because, like, it is sometimes we feel we don't have the permission to redefine and
Yes.
to reassess like who we are, and like
Mm.
my job is not to give women permission to
No.
change.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
change whenever you want.
Yeah.
But that's why I share my story, and that's why I bring women together in the group program that I run, to also share their reality. Because what ends up happening, I see it every single time I run the program. One woman shares how she was so reluctant to change, how she held
Yeah.
on so strongly to this pre-mother version of who she was. And there's always, it's like the hero's journey, but the heroine's
Yes.
journey. There's always this,
Yes.
like, this peak, and then this trough, and this coming of age, or this realization of, wait a minute, I'm no longer that same person. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that this new or different version of you is bad or
No.
less than.
Yeah.
It just means it's different. And
Yes.
the more and more we talk about that, the more and more we normalize it, the more I believe women will start to own this and stop trying to act like they're the same woman that they were when they were 25 years old and childless, and had all the independence and freedom in the world. Because the reality is for the most part, you don't have a lot of that when you become a parent.
Yeah. It's very
And you
limited.
can try to bake that in, but it's a concerted effort. It takes
Yes.
planning. It
Yeah.
takes effort
Scheduling.
and intention. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
okay. Again,
And
not
that
super
is
sexy,
totally. Yeah.
but there can be freedom in the scheduling. There can be freedom
Yes.
in the finding and creating the pockets of time for yourself, for your relationship, for your friendships, for
Yes.
the things that you're passionate about. Like, I took up watercoloring just as we moved, and I do it like 4 or 5 times a week. And
Mm.
sometimes it might be for a few hours. Like, I'm talking like on a Friday night, and I could be sitting at my desk until midnight, and my husband will be like, "You come to bed?" And I'm like, "This is so fun." And it's
Mm.
because there is no outcome tied to it.
Yes.
I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to hang it on a wall. I'm not going to, there's just, it's fun. And at the purest form, that's what kids do. And a lot of the
Yeah.
times I hear from women, like, that's also the thing that they love about, especially when you have like a toddler or a
Yes.
little one, that like they're curious about the world, and they teach you how to lose yourself in that moment.
Yes.
That is one of those things that I would love to see women embrace more of in motherhood, is
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to just reimagine who we are.
Yes.
Like, throw out the playbook, start again. I know it can be scary, but it can also be really exciting.
Yeah. And so liberating. And I can relate so much to what you shared because I share a lot of my personal story as well through motherhood, but also in my relationship. Like, I wrote articles that my relationship isn't perfect. After we had kids,
Yeah.
we literally felt like roommates. So if anyone else is feeling like that, you're not alone. And it is a season and you can get through it. But again, it's another thing that we don't really talk about that's taboo in society. We all know that once you have kids, your relationship changes. But we're all meant to act like
The
it's
science and
fine.
data is all there too.
It's all there. It's all there. And we all know it. Like, but it's just like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And it's like, well, no, we need to have these conversations. And like you said, I feel the same. We don't need permission, but I also know it was scary at first when I shared my story. And you probably felt the same because you're going first. But the more women do, I love that we can be that permission slip for each other that we know we don't need, but we can just be that, that support of like, it's okay. If you want to redefine who you are, if you want to redefine motherhood, if you want to recreate your relationship, like whatever it is, it's okay. And it doesn't mean, like you said, I think what we fear about change is, yes, the change. Obviously, our ego is like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. It does feel like a death. But I think it's also this like, well, can I, like, will I still be a good person? Like, if I need to change, am I a bad person? And it's not true. Like, again, it's all BS. Like, we're meant to keep evolving. We're human beings, we're spirits. Motherhood is meant to evolve. I know that I'm a totally different mother than I was 6 years ago. I have two kids under six, and every day I'm learning new things about myself and them. And I loved how you mentioned the curiosity, the creativity, like the pleasure, that it's your desire. They're following their desire, and it's presence. That's what it is. It's presence. And I think that's what we're all looking for. That's where the connection is, with ourselves, with our children, with our partners. It's in that presence. And like you said, allowing yourself to be in that moment. And in this busy life, it can be hard to create those moments where you can just be with like your watercolors or, out in nature, but it's so important. I know it's been game changing for me. I call it soul nourishment. For me,
Mm.
it's like what nourishes my soul. It's a practice. I build on it daily, and it's changed the way I parent. It's changed the way I show up in my relationship. Changed the way I feel about myself, and yeah, I think it's so much deeper than just that surface level self care. It's like really tending to you, exactly like you said. No outcome, no one to please, just
Hmm.
following whatever your soul is calling. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that over the years, in recent years, self-care has become this like buzzword that's
Mm,
associated with bubble baths and face
yes.
masks. And there's nothing wrong with bubble baths and face
Yep.
masks. But the difference between that surface level of self-care and true, what I would call wellness or
Yes.
self-love,
Yes.
is actually that mindfulness aspect. You can take the bubble bath, but like, and it doesn't need to be long. Maybe it's 10 minutes if that's all you can muster, right? But in those 10 minutes, do you pause to ask yourself things like, am I happy?
Mm, yes. How does it
How
actually
often do we
feel?
actually stop to, yeah, like how do I feel about my life right now? Are there parts of my life that I want to see a change? Do I
Mm,
need more rest? Could I benefit from slowing down a bit? Where could like slowing down today help me in the future? How will that help
yeah.
future me? Because I think there is a lot of guilt. People will call it mom guilt. I'm like, wait,
Mm,
what's dad guilt? And funny
yeah.
enough, there's no such
There
thing.
is no such thing.
There's no such thing. Again, it goes back to how we've been culturally conditioned to believe that women need to put their children first, mothers come last.
Oh, what a lie
We
that one
we're not
is. Oh my God.
exactly.
It took me a
We're
few
not meant to
years
take
to
care of
learn that.
ourselves. And here's the thing, what I will say, and especially if anybody is listening and you've got a very young child,
Oh,
right? And
yes.
I will
There are
say anything
seasons. Yeah.
like in the first like year of motherhood, that it's again, it's part of that. It's a new role. You're figuring it out. Even if you've had other children, each child is different. Each
Yeah.
pregnancy is different, or adoption, whatever the situation is, or if you're a step parent, there's a period of transition. And so
Mm,
there will be periods where it does feel tremendously hard to carve that time out for yourself. And I'm not here to say do it at all costs, because if it doesn't feel
yes.
right, it doesn't feel right. But I think what you and I are saying is it does get better,
Yes.
right? There is a light at the end of the tunnel and things change.
Yes.
And there will be ebbs and flows, and there will be times where maybe that self-care or that practice of creativity is only 5 minutes, and other times it's going to be 5 hours.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like it's working within your own means. And that's where I think, to your earlier point around social media, sometimes it can be harmful when we see people off and gallivanting and living these lives, but we don't know they've got three nannies at home.
Yes.
Or their partner's a stay-at-home dad. And it just means that it looks different. Like I could not have the life and the lifestyle that I have if it weren't for the fact that my husband works full time. I also work a corporate job in addition to running my business. My mother comes and watches our daughter because my husband and I both work from home. My mother comes Monday through Thursday. 9:30 till 5. She cooks us dinner once a week.
Oh
We
my
have a
gosh, does she want
cleaning
to come and live
cleaning
with me?
company. I know, my mother is an angel. Like, we have a cleaning company that comes every other week because
Yes.
that's something that my husband and I decided, you know what, not worth our time, and we'd rather pay for that. It's a privilege to be able to have these decisions. Since we moved back from Australia, we have family nearby, so my sister can come in from Manhattan and spend the afternoon with my daughter so that my husband and I can go and do a trail hike. Like, these are things that can change, and
Mm,
that I feel very privileged to be able to have that access. But it's also like, in moving back to the US, there was this big like push and pull. We wanted to try somewhere new, but it was also like, we're not moving back to the US to be sequestered from everybody else. We need that community. We need
yes.
that village. I am so open with my two closest girlfriends who also have kids. We've known each other like practically our whole lives. There's not a day goes by without a text message being exchanged, being like, what the F are we doing? Like,
Yep.
why,
How
why
are
did we
you going?
choose to
Like,
become
yeah,
moms?
why are we
Like,
doing
did
this?
anybody else? Yes, exactly. But it's like, again, it's not a pity party, but
No, it's
it's a
like a
moment in
it
time.
is. Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, meet me on Zoom for a wine. Or like,
Yeah.
let's just like have a girls' slumber party where we just get together and we eat good food and we watch movies and we do nothing for a few hours, and we don't talk about our kids, and we
Yes.
reminisce about the past, or we make plans for the future. Like, when you become a parent, you don't die.
Mm,
And
yes.
I will confess, I definitely used to think that.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think that some people believe it. And I think also, to your point earlier about relationships, there's such this story of like, oh, well, after a certain amount of time of being together, yeah, marital satisfaction is not a thing. It's not meant to be a thing. You're not meant to be like romantic or have any intimacy or be connected, because it's a stage of, you have kids and maybe one day you'll get that
Oh
back. And I'm
God,
like,
that's
wait,
the thing that scared the
I don't
hell
want to
out of me.
like, yeah,
Yes.
who wants to live this life of
Yes.
like subpar average? Not me.
No.
I don't want to do anything by halves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I love my husband, but I often say to him, like, the thing that actually matters more to me is that I like him and that we
Yes.
like each other. And that's the more
Yeah, and
exciting
that we want to
aspect to
spend
me.
time together. We're not just together for
Yeah,
the sake
yeah,
of it or to say we've been together for a long time. And I feel the
exactly.
same. I love that you said we don't have to die when we become parents. I often say that love and intimacy doesn't have to die. And but
Yep.
maybe the way you did it prior needs to die. You know, maybe the
Yes,
way in which
yes.
you did it, like the way you were as a woman, is going to die. The way you were together in your relationship may need to die. And that's okay. You can recreate something new if you're willing to let go of that. Because, like we said, you can hold on, but it's just not the same. There's no point arguing or fighting it. It's different.
And I think, to your point, like, maybe the old way has to die is a really good way to put it. But I also think, and I wrote about this on social media a few weeks ago, like, we have this epidemic of mothers who are acting like maidens.
Mm,
And
yes.
like, I went to an event about 6 months ago, probably, that was actually hosted by Naomi Watts, the actress. She's
Yes.
got a new company really centered around menopause and menopausal products and premenopausal products. And I was the youngest person there by far. I went with my older cousin, and I had the best time in the world. But you know what I realized is that all of these things, all of these quote unquote women's mysteries, menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, menopause, are all things that we're taught to feel. They're all
Mm,
things that we're taught are awful, and
yes.
that they don't serve us. And so we're told, like, take this to get rid of that, and
Yes.
do this thing to remain youthful looking. And it's like, well, what if getting older is worn like a badge of honor? And instead of, and let me tell you, I've got plenty of friends that love their Botox
Yes.
and, color their hair and do all of these things. And my hair is starting to go gray. And I'm like, there are times where I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh man, I remember like when I didn't have bags under my eyes and I didn't have the gray hair of the stress of the last few years. And I remember when I fit into those jeans, and I also remember, like, I used to do some pretty stupid stuff.
Yeah. I don't, yeah, you
I,
won't
I'm a,
grieve the
I'm
whole
a
thing.
different
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Like, I used to wear hip hugger jeans and crop tops, and like, there's nothing wrong with those things, but also like hip hugger jeans. Who needs their jeans like
Yes.
halfway down their ass when they sit down? But
Yes.
like, my point is that there is something that can be so freeing when we
Mm,
take control of these women's mysteries, when we embrace them and when we look
yes.
for the good in them. What are they teaching us about ourselves? What are they teaching us about what we no longer want and what we do want? Because I
Yes.
think that's the big thing. Like motherhood can be this cracking open, that can be this opportunity for self-discovery if we have our basic needs met first. That's
Yes.
one thing. And then the second part is like, if we allow it to, if we
Yes.
allow it to split us open and to say, I'm not the same. I don't know who I am yet. I don't know who I'm becoming, but I'm not going to rush it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like almost this need for a cocoon. And then that is the part of like all of the Melbourne lockdowns that I'm actually grateful for, is the sense that outside of social media, I didn't have other external things going on
Yes.
to change the way I was mothering in that instant. Like I didn't
Yes.
have people commenting on the way that I was breastfeeding my daughter. I didn't have people commenting on how we swaddled her or didn't swaddle her or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there was something very freeing in again going back to intuition, tapping into my intuition, treating myself with a lot of self-compassion, that this was a new role. I wasn't just inherently going to be good at caregiving,
Yes.
but I knew I would try. Just like anything else in my life, I was like, I'm going to give it my best shot. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm the perfect mother for this child,
Yes.
and that's it.
Yeah, I feel that to my soul, like 100%. And I did the same. I decided to see the gifts in having a second child during the pandemic. And yes, I would have liked more family around me. Like you said, I do think I'm I live 3 hours away from family. It definitely is hard sometimes, and I know a lot of my clients live away from family, and I do think not having that village does make it so much harder. But for me and my husband, I know for us, we've really it's made us step out and go, well, we need to create our own community. We need to
Mm-hmm.
create that village, and it will look different. Like it might include a daycare or like a nature school, or like allow your village to look however it needs to look. Doesn't necessarily have to be family. It could be like you said, outsourcing to get help in the home, and allow them to be part of your village and to support you. But it does take that willingness, like you said, to kind of motherhood definitely cracked me open. That's exactly how I would describe it. I'm like, it was the breaking and making of me. I love who I am more than ever, but it was because I had to allow that crack open, like you said, and then surrender into the void of like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what this is, but I'm willing to step into the journey just one step at a time and have that curiosity and that openness of discovering and rediscovering different parts of myself. And like you said, instead of fighting against it, just allowing it, welcoming it. And I 100% agree. I had like this full body yes when you said that we as women we're literally taught to like fear and be like terrified of all these seasons and journeys that we go through. What if it was the other way around? What if it was like how I'm sure it used to be around the campfire and being like, this is the next
Mm-hmm.
initiation of your journey. This is what I learned. This is what you might experience. What if it was like that? Like what a world. And you're doing that work, but we're all doing that work by having this conversation, by listening. You're opening to another way of approaching these stages and seasons that we go through that are part of our natural evolution. And they are for us. They're for us, even though it feels like it's happening to us. I really feel that it is for us. And yeah, there's so much beautiful magic and gifts and wisdom in all of it if we're willing to open to it. So yeah, I absolutely love that. Oh my gosh, I feel like I could just talk to you forever. Is there anything else that is really on your heart that you would love to share? I really recommend. I'm going to put all Andrea's details below. I would definitely go and check out her socials. There's lots of really helpful resources. I loved them. I'm always like, yes, 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 I can relate. That's me. So I know that my listeners will get a lot from it as well. But yeah, anything else on your heart that you'd love to share?
The thing that I want to mention before we finish up is just that the modern workplace, and when I say modern, I mean the post-industrial revolution workplace, which has been in place for about 100 years, was just not built with women in mind, and certainly
Mm,
not with women who are running a household, raising children, trying to maintain other relationships, trying to maintain their health, trying to have a career, maybe even do like pursuing an entrepreneurial thing on the side that they maybe want to make full time. Like it just was not built for that. And if there's one thing that the pandemic, I think, taught us is that women are capable of so much, but our health has to also come first. Our
Yes.
wellness has to come first, and that is not a selfish thing. And so often I speak with women, and I'm guilty of this myself too. So I also work with a coach on this. Um, there are, and my coach talks about it as like being above the line and below the line. And below the line
Mm,
is when you're just surviving, and above the line is when you're thriving. But there are certain um, rituals or things that we do in our lives that allow us to be above the line. But why is it that when things start to get hard, when they start to feel particularly challenging, it's always those things that we do, those rituals, those steps that we take to keep us above the line that go first. It's always the
yes.
workout, it's the breakfast, it's the catch ups with girlfriends, it's the painting, it's the heart filling, soul warming things that go by the wayside first. And
Mm,
so, what I will say is, we are replaceable at work. We are not replaceable in our families. Our health matters. So go to the doctor or the naturopath or whoever, touch base with yourself, and not just your physical health, but your mental and emotional health too. Because at the end of the day, the best thing that we can do as mothers, as partners, as members of our communities is to be happy and whole for ourselves first and then for others.
yes, 100%. Like I said, when you were sharing earlier, like how we've been taught to put our kids first, like it took me, I didn't, it kind of crept up on me. It took two kids to realize when I had my daughter, I was like, oh, I've fallen into that trap. That's why I'm below the line. Like I was in that survival energy over 3 years ago, and it took two kids for that to really crack open for me. And that was the biggest message that and lesson that I took out of it, was that I must be number one, because without me, there is no family, there is no home, there is no relationship. Like it's all
Mm-hmm.
coming through me. So it was a hard realization, but one that I am really passionate about as well. That women realize, even in their intimate relationships, because if you're not full, if there's nothing there for you, how are you meant to be expected to give to your partner? How, like, you're not going to want to spend time together. You're not going to want to, talk and like get to know each other or even be intimate. And you're not going to want to be present with your kids either. But then instead of just going, oh, like you said, oh, why don't I just keep going with that workout because that does fill me up? We punish ourselves and shame ourselves of like, oh, I'm not being intimate enough with my partner, or I'm not present enough with my kids, instead of going, well, actually, where am I with that line? Like, am I below the line? Am I in survival? Well, there we go. There's the answer. I need to fill up so that I'm actually above the line. I have some overflow to actually give. And I really hope women everywhere really start to allow that for themselves. It's something I'm really passionate about as well as a relationship coach. I'm like, you first. It's me first. Like, put you first so that we can actually create what we want to create. So I love that you feel the same. Wow, this conversation has really filled my cup and nourished my soul, and I feel like everyone listening is going to get so much value from it. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your heart. I feel like I've learned so much from this chat. I love your energy. I love your work. Thank you so much for being here, beautiful.
Thank you. I feel the same way about your work. I'm so glad that we are connected.